You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this week's edition of the On Purpose Podcast, where it's our privilege and pleasure to show up with you each and every week and to help you get moving a little bit, get you thinking a little bit differently maybe, or a lot of times just reminding us of what we already knew or what we already told ourselves we were supposed to be doing. So I'm excited to have this place in your life, and thank you so much. This week, I'm thrilled to welcome a guest whose journey is all about transformation, leadership, and living intentionally. Laura Nelson is the founder of Sober Life Rocks, a dynamic community that empowers professionals to embrace sobriety without sacrificing connection or success. Laura's mission isn't just about removing alcohol, it's about redefining how we show up with purpose in our personal and professional lives. From overcoming challenges to leading with confidence, her insights will inspire anyone looking to level up their mindset, their habits, and broaden their impact. But before we welcome Laura to the show, I got to ask that you help us out. Get over to your favorite podcast apps or YouTube, like, subscribe, share, or actually do all of them. If you're getting anything out of the show, this is episode 304. That means over 6 years and over 300 episodes we've been showing up. So help us continue to reach more people and fulfill our mission, which is to be one of the most impactful podcasts on the world. So with that, take a minute, like, subscribe, share, and then sit back and enjoy this week's conversation with Laura Nelson. Honor the Brave was founded by retired law enforcement officer Jeff Wolfgang and his wife Xana after Jeff was injured in the line of duty. It's their way of giving back to the first responder and military community through real estate. If you're a military or first responder, past or present, buying or selling a home, Honor the Brave connects you with trusted realtors nationwide and gives back through their Brave benefits. You receive an amount equivalent to 10% of your agent's commission as a thank you. An additional 5% goes to a charity you choose impacting first responders or military families, and you'll receive a handmade wooden flag honoring your service. Visit honorthebrave.com. We've got your six. Laura, my newest friend, welcome to the On Purpose Podcast. How are you today?
I'm amazing. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, amazing. I got to tell you, one of my first ways I kind of evaluate things in life is when I ask people how they're doing, the first word that comes to mind. And amazing is a great one.
Actually, it's funny you bring that up because I've just done a bunch of coaching. And during the coaching program, one of the things she said is the words out of your mouth is what you get. And so I used to be like, oh, I'm fine. Thank you. I'm good. And now I've just changed my words and like everything has also gotten better around me. So it's funny you bring that up.
Yeah, no, I'm super hypersensitive to that because I will usually say fantastic. So, and I catch myself if I don't say fantastic, if I just automatically reply and I say like good or I'm okay, then I realize, okay, I got to check in with myself. Something's off a little bit right now.
Yep, for sure. I think another thing for me, it used to be a pet peeve of mine when family members would say, oh, you're so busy. We don't, you're busy. We don't want to bother you. And then I would hear people ask me, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. I'm busy. And in my mind, busy is good because that means things are happening. But when I hear other people say it to me, it makes me feel like I'm too busy for them. So I caught myself not saying the word busy anymore. So it's crazy, the words, how they can really impact your life.
It shapes it, right? Like it literally shapes the energy around you and the next interaction you're going to have.
Right. For sure.
Right.
For sure. And internally and externally. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking about that because if somebody, you're greeting somebody first time you met them, you're like, how are you doing? They're like, I'm all right. Or the one that always gets me is when people say, I'm living the dream. Right, because very few people I know that say that habitually are actually living their dream.
Right, exactly. Yep, exactly. Some of it is just rote. So it is, I think it's great you brought it up to start because it makes us go like, that was an intentional answer.
It was.
So, for sure.
I love it. I love it. Laura, we're honored to have you here today. I can't wait to get into Sober Life Rocks. I'm excited to talk about that. And what I really love about what you're doing is sharing it in a manner that it's acceptable for professionals, that we get new strategies to stay connected and socialize. Because I think, at least in my experience, too many times when people want to be sober, sober curious, or limit their drinking, they feel like they don't belong anymore. They can't be in social settings, and that's a detriment, right? Because you can do both if you want,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
but just like our word choices for how we greet each other, it's got to be conscious, and there's got to be some habits we're going to have to reform.
Yep, for sure. And the thing about the professional setting versus personal setting is when you are choosing to drink less or not drink, you can make choices in your personal life of who you hang out with, what bars you go to or what bars you don't go to, right? What events you're at. But in your professional life, a lot of times you don't get those choices. Like you have to go to the conferences or you have to do the dinner events or whatever. And so that's where the professional side of things with sobriety or sober choices is a little challenging. And that's where we're really kind of tackling and going into with Sober Life Rocks.
I'm excited. I'm excited to get into it. I'm excited to learn some new tricks and habits. But first, Laura, I got to warm you up. I can't just jump into the heavy stuff. This is like a workout. We got to get loose a little bit. We're going to pull a hamstring, and nobody has time for that. All right, you ready for this? Your first warm-up question. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset. I am not a morning person.
Oh, well, thanks for being up early with me today.
I know, right?
What is it about sunsets?
I live in California, so you just can't beat the sunsets on the West Coast. And I'm not a morning person. I'd rather sit in bed and have coffee than venture outside to try to see a sunrise.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and you're right. California does have amazing sunsets.
Mm-hmm.
A quote that stuck with you.
If it's not fun, don't do it.
Oh, wow. When did you come across that one?
I don't actually know, but it's become sort of my life passion or my life quote that I live by. So I don't know where or how or when I heard it, but for me, if it's not fun, don't do it, is a couple things. It's either about the environment you're in. If it's not fun, maybe change your environment, or it's about you. If you are not having fun in the environment you're in, maybe change your attitude about where you are. And so for me, everything is you can find fun in anything. And if you're not finding fun, then what needs to change? You know, it's either you or the environment. So it's kind of if I find myself not having fun, and not saying everything is fun, work is work. But if you aren't enjoying what you're doing, maybe there's something to be done about it. So if it's not fun, don't do it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that applies on so many different levels.
Oh, I actually applied it to drinking, which we could talk about in a bit. Like that's one of the reasons I finally stopped drinking, because it wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
It was fun in the beginning, but it became not fun for me after a long time. So if it's not fun, don't do it.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited to hear that. All right, the next one. What is a song that's stuck in your head or on repeat in your playlist?
Oh, Jesse's Girl, Rick Springfield.
What?
Yeah, I know. I'm
Is
in
that
the 80s. Yeah.
I would not. That one just caught me. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of try to guess like what people might say and just have a framework. Jesse's Girl was not where I'd have gone with that.
Yeah, it's funny because we were just talking beforehand. I'm on a road trip with my husband, and we've had a 6-hour drive the other day from West Virginia into Ohio. And I was, getting tired, and you're like, I'm at the last hour. And then, I mean, I remember being 14 and liking the song, and the multiple times in my life where Rick Springfield got me through a breakup or a celebration or a promotion or whatever. And here I'm in my 50s. And yeah, the first 2 or 3 notes, I knew exactly what it was and started like blurting out the words. So it's just my go-to, I guess.
There you go. So that's your entrance song now. When you're speaking, we're going to play that on the speakers. Welcome you to the stage.
I think I could come up with better ones, but that's, I guess, it puts me back to my teenage years.
Oh, that's the joy of music, right? Is you can just hear it and it immediately takes you back. You can remember sights, sounds, smells, what you were doing.
Yeah,
right. That's a good one. Jesse's Girl. All right. Favorite book?
I would have to say I have two. One is This Naked Mind, which is a book that changed my life with alcohol. It's the first book I drank after I stopped drinking, and it helped me change from I can't drink to I choose not to drink. So This Naked Mind, and then the second book I read was Atomic Habits by James Clear, and that was really about like how to change, like we were talking about habits and things in your life if you want your life to change. So I'd have two.
Okay, I like it. If you could have dinner with one person, they could have passed or still be with us, who would you have dinner with and what would you want to ask them?
I would probably my mother-in-law who passed away about a month ago. And she suffered from Alzheimer's the last about 7 years of her life. And I think people who you don't realize when the last conversation that's meaningful is going to happen. And so I think I'd like to go back and just really be in the moment with her while she was still here mentally with us, 7, 8 years ago. So that would be who I'd go back to.
Ah, man, that's powerful, right? Like you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. We don't know the last time we get to do anything.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
kind of to go back to your quote, if it's not fun, don't do it. If we knew this was our last time of doing anything, we'd probably try to
Mhm.
enjoy it a little more.
Right. Exactly. For sure. And I mean, this is my first time dealing in close family member with Alzheimer's, and that's such an awful disease
Ugh.
because physically they're here, but mentally they're not. And so that's the part I think that's really hard about that.
Yeah, no, there's no fun way to go through that process.
No.
Um, I had a question, I can't remember what it was. All right, you warmed up, Laura?
I think so. We
Yeah,
we got to know a lot of my
I,
my all the stuff. So let's
yeah,
go.
I love it. All right, let's just kick off. What led you kind of to your sobriety story and creating Sober Life Rocks?
Sure. So I went to college. I grew up in the military, so I was in Germany when I was a kid. So I did the typical drinking. I don't know if that's typical, but the college and the life, and then got married, had kids, did the suburbia life. I'm in the dental industry as my day job. So I started a business in the dental industry. I started speaking. I started going on the road to events. And so fast forward 20, 30 years, I'm drinking at conferences, I'm doing mom's wine nights, I'm drinking with my husband on date nights, I'm doing the sports and all of the things. Found myself when my kids were 17 and 18 at a life change that I didn't have planned. I was separated and on my own. And so now I'm at this point in my life where I'm like, well, what's next for the next chapter? Um, was leaning into alcohol quite a bit during depression and divorce, and was kind of thinking, this can't be it. This can't be
Mm,
I raised two children and my best friend is a wine bottle in the evening by myself. And then going to events, I was the first one at the bar, the last one to leave. Not that I was a hot mess, but I was, I was making it through life with alcohol, right? And I was just getting tired of it. Like I said, if it's not fun, don't do it. And then finally got to a point in 2020, I was at a conference and I'm a speaker and I was supposed to speak on the second day, but somebody didn't show up the first day. And they asked me if I would speak on the first day instead of, switching days since that speaker didn't show up. But I had had one too many glasses of wine the night before. And I watch how much I drink the night before I speak. And so therefore I couldn't say yes to speaking because I just knew I wouldn't be as good on stage. And it hit me that night where I was like, this is my career. And I'm not doing what I'm paid to do because of alcohol. And so that was sort of the beginning. I then heard somebody on stage talking about how she was sober. She was somebody I looked up to in the industry where I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. Um, Fast forward, I came home and decided that was it. I'm done drinking. I mean, I had been thinking about it, challenged with it for a few years, but finally made the decision where it's like, this is just taking too much brain space, too much energy, too much of my life. And I'm one of those personalities. I'm either all in or all out. I'm the same with like eating. I can't do a diet. I'd rather fast because I can't, So I was like, that's the day I need to stop drinking. And then the first book I read was this Naked Mind, which if anyone's sober curious, sober wanting to just see why we have this challenge we have, this Naked Mind is a very good book that helps us put it all in perspective. And that book helped me see that I just needed to wanted to change my relationship with alcohol. So that's how I got sober.
Yeah, let's go back to that for a second if you don't mind. I love that.
Mhm.
So I would say that's kind of a wake up call, right? Like here you are working hard to move up in the world. You're out presenting and you have to say no
Right.
to an opportunity because of your habits or habit at that time. How did you work through not blaming them for moving you to where you had to say no, but reflecting and taking ownership of, okay, this was an opportunity I lost? Because I think sometimes for a lot of us, we'll get faced with these wake up calls, but instead of seeing it as a wake up call to reflect inward, we want to blame externally.
Yeah. I think for that, it was anytime you wake up and have had too much to drink, even not like super hungover, but you never wake up going, God, I wish I had another drink. God, I wish I would have had one more glass of wine, right? You're in your head, I think, whenever, I mean, alcohol use disorder, I've learned a lot of this now because I used to think it was you're an alcoholic or you weren't, but alcohol use disorder is a spectrum. And if you're on the spectrum of regretting drinking for the wrong reason, right? It all happens in here. I mean, this is a self-diagnosed issue. And so in those moments and in that moment, I was reflecting internally going, if only I hadn't had one more glass of wine, if only I hadn't, I'd gotten a good night's sleep. So maybe intentionally, I guess the hangover helps to kind of go like, oh, I don't like the way this feels. I don't like that. So I was in the right mindset, mind space to be like, this is definitely a me issue and not a them issue. And I'm a person who would love to step up when needed.
Yep.
Ask me to do something, I'd love to do it. And the fact that I couldn't do it, again, went right into, but then honestly, like you're talking about guilt, shame, fear, like the whole thing. And it's like, well, what's giving me this? Why am I having this problem? And it was completely, due to alcohol.
How did you work your way through that? How did you wrestle with all those emotions? Because I think that's one of the big things that scares people is the emotional toll, right? Like you're gonna have a process. It's not gonna be super quick and easy for most people. How did you work
Yeah.
through that?
Well, mine, again, like I said, I mean, this has been something in my brain for years of like, do I drink too much? When do I drink? Why am I drinking? Where can I eat to drink? Where to not drink? Like it was taking a lot of brain space just in general, right? And then when I came home, honestly, as a man, you may appreciate this. I came home from being away at a conference, laid in bed all day, just depressed and upset and sad, and just knowing I had to make this decision, and wrote my husband a note because I couldn't say the words. And the first thing really is to admit you have a problem or need help is to tell somebody else. But I couldn't say, like, because I was afraid of life without alcohol. Like I just assumed you couldn't have fun. How am I going to do this? Like I didn't know many people who were sober. And so I write my husband a note. So he comes home from work and I hand him a note. And now we laugh at it, 6 years later. Like he probably thought I was leaving him or I had had an affair, or I'm
Right.
like crying, handing him this note. And I'm like, I think I have a problem with alcohol. And he's like, that's it. Okay, cool. We got this. Right.
Yeah.
But it was, it was a lot of, and it wasn't just that day. It wasn't like one day I was like, oh, I'm done. It was a process. And I'm sure a lot of people feel similar.
How important was that step of sharing what you were going through with somebody else?
I think huge. I think huge. I think so, no matter what your issue is, whether it's alcohol or depression or whatever, the fact that we keep it internal and we try to process it ourselves and we feel so alone when there is somebody else in this world who's gone through something similar to you. Maybe not exactly the same, but similar to you. And I think community is huge. And so the fact that I could actually say the words and talk about it was a vital first step, because now I know I'm not alone in this, and whatever the issue is, I think that's a big part of it is finding community.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. There's Usually somebody around us that wants to support us if they know how to support or if they even know
Mm-hmm.
what we're going through.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And with a lot of stuff, I know for me, it was your own internal shame, fear. I was mad at myself. How could I have a beautiful family, a great career, a good life, and yet I didn't have control over one thing in my life? And I can control a lot. And for me, that was just internally eating me up. But now, after learning so much, I mean, it's an addictive substance. Of course, I don't have control over because its job is to make me addicted to it. Like now I know a lot more, but I didn't at the time. I'm just like, it's just a bottle of beer. It's just a glass of wine. Like, why is this thing controlling me? And so when you process a lot of it internally, you're not getting the support and the help that you need that you can find externally.
When you just don't get another perspective, right?
Right. Yep. Yep. And that's where the book that I read, I mean, she talks about she was a marketing executive, similar situation, didn't really start having a problem until later in her career because she was going to these events and she was doing the wine dinner and hanging out with the executives and networking around the bar, and alcohol's expected there because you're networking at a bar. And so that's kind of like the things I was doing was normal. Everybody was doing it, right? But internally, I was like, I think I have a problem.
Mm.
And how do you know? Like, what's the thing to say and if you go to the doctor and ask, they're like, well, do you drink more than this a week? And I don't know if we tell the truth or not, but we're like, no, and okay, you're fine. And it's like, but if
Yeah.
I'm battling this internally, am I fine?
I've never told the doctor anything truthfully because I figure like it's their job to figure out what's wrong with me. If I tell you, like, why did I pay to come here?
Have you seen that Saturday Night Live skit about doctor if men went to it was a skit about men going to the doctor and they turned it into a podcast. And so men would be more open about the real things that they were talking about if they went on a podcast and was asked versus going to the doctor. You should look it up if you haven't seen it. It's super cute.
Yeah, no, I'll have to. Yeah, no, that's always one of my little things off topic. But as my wife's like, did you tell the doctor? And I go, no, I never tell them anything. Like, it's their job to figure this out.
You and my husband should be interviewing. He always tells me he's filling out the form. He's like, why do they need to know this? I don't even know why are they even asking? I'm going to the dentist. Why did they care I've ever had this done? Right. I'm like, just fill out the form.
Right. That's hilarious. So, Laura, was there a defining moment as you transitioned away from alcohol and leaned into your career that you're like, okay, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, and this is why I'm supposed to be doing this?
Yeah, actually. So after the day after I got sober, one of the things is I had some people who were popping up on my social media who were influencers, sober influencers, like on Instagram and TikTok. And so I had been watching them kind of leading up to this,
Mm.
going like, wow, if they could do it, I could do it. Right. And so I then didn't tell anyone in my career because I didn't want anyone to know in my business that I was challenged with drinking and going to be sober. And plus, what if I didn't stay sober? I just didn't want people to. So what I did is I went to TikTok and I actually made a TikTok channel myself. And I started talking about day 1, day 3, day 5, day 10, because for me, I wanted a way to look back and be like, I don't want to go through day 1 again because day 1 is hard and day 3 is even harder. Right. And so I had TikTok over here and then my business life over here. And then the world shut down because this is 2020. So in March, everybody, we all get stuck at home. Everybody else is drinking more. I'm drinking not at all. Then a couple of years later, we're back on the road. So now it's like 2022 and I'm at a conference and I'm walking through the reception area of the lobby. And this guy stops me and he said, hey, I just have to tell you, you're part of my, you're still there, right, Jerrod?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You froze on my screen. So I just want to make sure I wasn't like talking to myself.
No, you're good.
He said, I have to tell you, you're part of my sober story. I'm 7 months sober. And I was like, oh, that's great. What do you mean? He said, I've been following your TikTok channel. And at that moment, my heart dropped because
Oh,
I
wow.
thought, oh no, people know I'm sober. And then it hit me. I'm like, wait, if I feel like that, then that's what needs to change. Why should it matter if I'm sober or not? Why does it care? And this gentleman, my friend, is telling me I'm part of his sober story. Like, this needs to change. And that's really where I had my first aha about we need to stop being sober in silence. If you want to, that's fine. But there's so many of us who are fine to tell people that we're sober and we don't drink, and we can help other people not have to suffer alone if we just start to share our story. And that's really the first time that I started to think, you know what, I need to be vocal about this in my business life, just like I am in my personal life.
Oh, I love it. And I love that you went to social media because so many times, especially like our generation, we're close to the same age. Social media gets
Right.
such a bad rap for nothing but negativity and conflict and stuff. And I'm like, man, if that's what you choose to do with it. On the flip side,
Right.
like this whole show has been built off the back of social media. We reach people around the world, and you're reaching
Yeah.
people because we choose to use it that way. And there's always value in our story. It's just like sharing your story with your husband. Like there's value in getting that community and support. And there's also value in sharing your story because somebody around the world might learn from it like this guy, but he can only learn from it if he hears it.
Exactly. And there's another video that I watched, speaking of social media, it's called Gray Area Drinker, and it's a TED Talk. And it was shared. And when I was struggling of like, I don't feel like I'm an alcoholic, because in my mind, an alcoholic was, brown bag on a road, drinking out of a bottle, which was just based on how I grew up. Not that that's right or wrong, like, but didn't feel that way because I'm like, I'm a speaker, I'm traveling. But then I saw a TED Talk about Gray Area Drinker. And had we not had availability to have YouTube and TED Talks and social media, I wouldn't have these perspectives from people that were outside of my environment. In my environment, my dad always warned me, like, be careful. We have alcoholism in our family. Be careful. But yet nobody was sober. So I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I'll be careful. That's all I really knew. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, this is using social media for the right way is a good thing.
Do you think? Because I had another guest on not too long ago, Candace Lostro, who's gone into the sober living. She speaks very openly about it as well. Do you think that's something with our generation that is questioning the use of alcohol more than maybe the previous generation?
I think that yes, our generation is the one who has the biggest issues with alcohol. The younger generation actually, the studies show that they're just not drinking the way we do and did. And I kind of think of it as like, do you remember cigarettes? Like,
Yeah.
in the 70s, 60s, like cigarettes were big, and now that's no longer. I mean, they're around, but it's not such an issue and a problem. And then ours is alcohol. I don't think alcohol is going to be the problem of our younger generation. I unfortunately think they're going to have their own vices, which looks like the vape shops and the other things that are going on. But yeah, it's truly, and I do think that because we're more vocal about it, there's more and more people who are trying to be healthier, trying to live a better life. And there's no question that alcohol does not help when you're trying to be more, conscious and more, present and more healthy. So
So what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions about sobriety for our professionals that are navigating social and career settings?
I would say for me, one is that if it's not fun, don't do it. Meaning, like, I was afraid that I couldn't have fun without alcohol. So I used alcohol as a way to it just seemed like that was the only way to have fun. If you talk to anyone who's sober, they will tell you that there's a life you don't even expect on the other side. That's quite fun. And everything that I do, I remember. Every time I wake up in the morning, I don't regret anything. So there is fun with that alcohol. I think the other thing, which is why we started Sober Life Rocks and I wrote my book, is that when we go to professional settings, we feel like everyone's drinking. I felt that way. I felt like
Mm.
I don't want to be the only one not drinking. But if you actually, and this is what I'm trying to uncover with, writing my book and bringing this to light, is that there's 25 to 30% of the room that's also not drinking, but they're hiding it. We're putting a lime in our drink. We don't have better options at the bar, so we're just putting like club soda and a lime, and we're walking around like we're drinking because we don't want to deal with why aren't you drinking? Are you pregnant? Are you in recovery? Like, it's just easier to act like everyone else so we don't have to deal with it. But really, if we were more vocal about the fact that there's a good percentage of us not drinking, you don't feel alone anymore. If you actually realize that there's other people. And so that's the biggest thing I think for professionals, is to realize there's not the stigma around being sober like there was 20, 30 years ago. And there are a lot of people in this room that are probably not drinking. We're just not talking about it.
Yeah. Do you think that goes back to changing our perception of what being influenced by alcohol or having habits that are created around alcohol, changing how we see that, right? It's not the brown bag guy
Yep.
living under the overpass.
Yep.
It's there's a lot of functional alcoholics. There's a lot of people that are
Yep.
inconsistent in how they
Yeah.
show up for work and their families and the career because of alcohol. It's not like you said earlier, it's not a one size fits all. You're either completely ineffective or you're alcohol free.
Yep. And that's where alcohol use disorder, if anyone's thinking and listening to this and wondering, just research, go online and look up alcohol use disorder. It's a spectrum. And everyone, and anybody who's drank too much or drank for the wrong reason or regretted drinking the next morning, you are on the spectrum. You might be at the beginning of the spectrum, not full, all the way to the point where it's out of hand, but it is a spectrum. And alcohol, no matter what, alcohol's job is it's addiction. It's an addictive substance.
Yeah.
If you drink it long enough, you will get addicted. When? There's a whole bunch of variables to that. But we have to realize that wherever you are, that's your own personal decision. It's your own personal choice. And again, if you're struggling, you don't have to. And it might be just cutting back. It might be being sober curious, just being aware. When do you drink? Why do you drink? Do you really need to have that drink? One of my big things in my book, I talk about, we use alcohol as a way to connect. So we show up to events, in a professional event, you walk into a conference room or into a evening event, and it's hard to walk in as a stranger and you don't know people and to network. So we go to the bar and we get a drink, and holding that drink helps us get the confidence, right, that we need to walk up to a stranger. We haven't even taken a sip of the alcohol yet, right? It's just the idea that we're holding the drink and the alcohol to be confident. So if you actually really play that out, it's not the alcohol hasn't even done anything yet. Even if you've taken a sip, it hasn't done anything yet, but we use that as our way to connect. And so just even recognizing the fact that it's not the alcohol in this case that's making it better, not yet. And then maybe that first glass of alcohol does help a little bit, but the second, third, and fourth glass is probably going to make your evening worse because the dumb things you say or the things you don't remember or the networking that's not happening. So really kind of being curious and aware and going, where does this alcohol actually serve me during this 3-hour evening event, right? Really only for about X amount of time. And the rest of it, it's all in our head. It's all in just habits or what we've been told or how we've just always done it.
So what is the strategy then? If I'm got to go to that tonight, a networking event, and I don't want to drink, how do I get to that same place where I have the confidence to start breaking the ice that maybe alcohol had helped with before?
Well, there's a whole bunch of things. I could answer it from 7 different directions.
Let's do it.
But first is, yeah, exactly, right? First is just being aware and recognizing that alcohol isn't, like, think about it, right? When you actually show up, you're already having a conversation with somebody before the alcohol's done its job, before it's actually started to change the way you feel, right? The second thing is, if there's somebody else in the room not drinking, you don't feel alone. So what we're trying to do at Sober Life Rocks is to bring it out in the professional setting so that, Jerrod, if you walk in the room, even if you do drink, but you choose not to drink tonight, that I don't drink, that somebody else over there doesn't drink. So when you choose not to drink, you don't feel alone anymore, which is part of the reason we drink, because of peer pressure, right? We're adults, but peer pressure. So there's that. Then there's also learning skills to network, right? And that's just part of the thing you have to do when you put the bottle down is you have to learn how to do life without alcohol. And so some of it is the highs and the lows. How do you go to a concert sober? How do you go in a network sober? How do you deal with death and loss sober, right? So there's communities, there's groups, and that's not what we do at Sober Life Rocks, but there's lots of tips and tricks of how to do these things. And then lastly, for me, is I'm very big. I wrote a book called The Inclusive Event Planner. and the ideas with the event space and the conference space, that they need to offer better options for those that are sober, because a lot of times the reason we go order the club soda with a lime is because there's nothing else good to drink except for soda, like Coke and Sprite. And I don't want that, right?
Right.
So I'm pushing on the event space and the conference planners to have better options, because I would love to have a non-alcoholic beer to hang out with people, drink a beer. Like, I don't care what you drink, don't care what I drink, but also give me better options, because it's going to make me feel less like an outsider if I can drink an adult beverage, just one without alcohol.
How's that been received? Because off the top of my head, I notice like we go to events now and there's usually like a vegan option or a gluten-free option. So obviously that's further ahead in the spectrum than
Right.
the sobriety side. But how's that been received by vendors when you pitch that to them?
It's actually funny. I just spoke at my first ever marketing conference last week in Vegas, and it's like they've never, well, I shouldn't say it's like they haven't. There's a pressure and a push on the event planners now to have better options, but they don't know how to do it. And so that's where I've had the opportunity to speak, and I have my book that's a lot of people are passing around, in the sense of it has little to do with the bar, even though there is better options and the bartenders and you got to train them. But really it's about the event space and how to make it more inclusive, how to make your event less about drinking and more about the experience, and just have alcohol on the sideline. The event planners are embracing it. They are looking at it as a way, kind of like vegan and vegetarian options. Like back in the day, you had to go to a special table to go pick up your meal, and now you get served with everyone else. I think event planners are seeing like it's a need and it's a want. The challenge we're having is above the event planners with the conferences and hotels, because they go to the food and beverage catering and say, okay, we want sober options, right? Non-alcohol options. And they say, we got you, no problem. And then we go to the actual event and they're serving like some sticky sweet mocktail goopy thing in a spout in the corner. That isn't an option. That is not what we're talking about. But the event meeting planners or food and beverage catering people, they have contracts with the hotels with alcohol, with big alcohol.
Yeah.
They have to sell so much alcohol. And so there's this pressure from above. And so we're trying to get the event planners to start poking at them, saying, this is not okay. This is not okay. This is not okay. So we can break through at the higher level of the conferences and hotels to say, we need better options available to us besides the sticky sweet mocktails. So I'm sure, and I wasn't in the vegetarian vegan space. I'm sure they had similar challenges of we got to do better. That's really where we are. And I'm confident we will, but I don't think it's definitely an evolution. It's going to take a little bit.
Well, I think it ties back to what you said before. Like our generation at this age now is the kind of leading the move away from alcohol, or at least questioning alcohol's place in our life versus what it's been. And the younger generation obviously pushes things forward a little quicker, and when they get to a space, hopefully we've set some groundwork to where that's a normal thing. They're accustomed to going to events where it is more about the experience. And I see that, I don't know how old your children are, but with my kids, that they're craving experiences, and that's their whole life is set up around experience. So I do.
Well, and I was going to say that doing what we're talking about is going to help meetings with our younger generation too, because they're not going to conferences and events. The younger generation, they don't feel the need to have the same organization go to events that we did, because they can find everything online. They're going to get the answers online, like we talked about, right? They only are going to come to your conference if there's FOMO around it, if there's an experience, so meeting planners tend to, if they want more people to show up, they used to put more alcohol to it, higher level bars, more alcohol in the exhibit hall floor, more drinking up. But that's not bringing the younger generation either. So if you've got our generation trying to drink less, and then you got the younger generation who don't care about the alcohol, there is pressure on the meeting planners and conferences and stuff to do more experiences, because that's what's really going to get people to show up.
And then today, correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, I know like me and my wife, if we were going to go to something, we'd base it probably on either the music or the food.
Uh-huh. Right.
Right. Like have good food is way more important than having an open bar.
I would also say in the people.
Yeah.
The people that are there. Because like, who do you want to hang around with?
Right.
Like, who's there? And so you put those three together and you've got a good event. Mm-hmm.
So let me shift gears real quick because you're a leadership development as well, right? Like we're talking, like you're helping leaders, work through sobriety stuff. But how have you found that sobriety plays a role in individual leadership and developing that side of your personality as well?
Well, I think, again, when you put the bottle down, whatever that looks like for you, right? When you're not relying on alcohol, one of the things that you have to do is really take time to look in the mirror. Because why do you drink? Why did you drink? And a lot of it is really becoming aware of yourself, which means work, which means, like I was mentioning early on, like I'm doing happiness training. I have a coach that works on like my life skills and stuff, because after about 4 years of being sober, I was like, cool, I'm sober, but I'm not truly happy. So why am I not truly happy? Well, that was internal work, right? That was me learning more about me. I mean, I started drinking before I was 21. Sorry to say that, but
Yeah.
before I became an adult, before I knew what I love and I don't love. And I remember when I stopped drinking and I'm single and I'm alone and I'm like, okay, so now who am I? Like, what do I like? What do I not like? So I think all of that plays into better leadership, because you as a person are learning more about yourself and you're learning more about, working on your skills. And then I think on top of that, to give up alcohol or to do something different than the norm takes a bit of leadership, personal, like it takes a bit of like strength to be able to say, the norm is to do that, but I'm going to go against the norm. And a lot of times when I'm coaching and talking with people who are sober and they're like, oh, everyone's pushing alcohol on me, they're asking me all these questions and they want to know, they may not be trying to push alcohol on you. They may actually be asking you these questions because they're wondering how you did it. They're wondering so you're a leader in your own right, just because there's somebody watching you potentially wondering, like, because they're waking up the next morning going, oh, I kind of wish I wouldn't have drank last night. I wonder why or how this person's doing it. So I think it really does play into a stronger opportunity to be a stronger leader.
Yeah, and I love it, right? You're right. You're developing, and that's what I tell anybody in a leadership space is leadership never starts with others. It has to start with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? To effectively lead anybody else, I have to effectively lead me first. And that
Right.
means honesty and courage and
Mm-hmm.
grit, toughness to get through something maybe I didn't believe it was possible, which then becomes, like you're saying, contagious, or at
Mm-hmm.
least curious to those that we get to lead to open up different conversations that you probably weren't having.
Right. Yep, for sure. And part of that then is with Sober Life Rocks, what our goal is to just get people to realize they're not alone in this professional space with their challenge with alcohol or wanting to stop drinking or drinking less. And so many people, I think, are suffering in silence or they're sober in silence. And that's what we're trying to, we don't want people to feel alone. There are other people who've gone through what you're going through and are thinking what you're thinking. So don't suffer in silence. But then there's also a lot of us who are sober. Why are we being quiet about it? Right? The pivotal moment for Sober Life Rocks is I was on a panel and it was 125 women in the room. And they asked me to be on this panel because of my sober choices. And it was the first time I spoke. I was really nervous. I was like, I'm going to say this in front of my peers. And I happened to say, how many women in here think that they're or are sober, soberish, or sober curious? And a quarter of the women raised their hands. But they raised their hands kind of timidly, with
Mm.
like sort of looking over their shoulder. And that's when my business partner and I, we were both at this conference and we're like, this has to change. Like, why are we being like embarrassed about it or worried about what people will think? Like, this has to change, because there's a lot of people in here for whatever reason, health, religion, fitness, recovery, it doesn't matter. Why are we keeping this silent? Why
Mm.
are we not sharing it with others? So,
It's crazy. And I'll tell you one of the reasons I love sobriety and is consistency,
mhm.
right? Like a couple things come to mind. If I'm leading a team and I'm hungover today, my response, my interactions are going to be different than the days I'm not.
Right. Yep.
And the team deserves to be able to come to you and have a consistent, they know what to expect from Laura,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
The other one,
Yep.
the other one that always drove me is we have 3 kids, and I never wanted to be in a situation where they needed help and I
I
was
couldn't.
unable to do it.
I actually, when you said consistency, I felt that way for my children also.
Right.
That the consistency of the way mom and dad act in the evening are the same way they act in the morning, are the answers you get, the stories you get consistent.
And
Mm-hmm.
especially like you mentioned a couple things. I'm like, man, we tell our kids that, but we don't necessarily practice that peer pressure thing. Right? How many times
Mm-hmm.
did your teens come to you and say, you know, mom, everybody around me's smoking marijuana or everybody around me's doing this? And you're like, well, not everybody. Just the people you're
Mm-hmm.
around may be doing it, but there's plenty that aren't. But then we fall
Mm-hmm.
subject to it and say, oh, well, I got to have a drink because everybody's drinking.
Right. And that's part of the thing. It's cultural. That's what Annie talks about in her book is that we grow up thinking mommy and daddy deserve this drink and it's okay as an adult and all these things. So we grow up until we become 21 or 19 or 25 or whatever. We're like, oh, I've made it. I'm there. And so we do this thing that we're sitting here telling our children not to do.
Yeah. Crazy, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
you just dissect it and break it down and go, okay, what is the behavior? And is this a behavior that I would want
Mm-hmm.
if
And
I
well,
if I wasn't on autopilot?
and also take it out of kids and take it as a leader. So I go a lot to the event and conference space because I'm a speaker in the event space. And so I go to lots of meetings and I've been on both sides, drinking, not drinking,
Yeah.
leader, employee, all of that. As a leader, you tell your employees, don't make a fool of yourself at these business events. Like watch what you drink, do these things. I have seen some of the most inappropriate actions because of alcohol from leaders at events where employees are watching you. So it's like do as I say, not as I do with our children. And then now at business events. I mean, I think there's people, more and more people trying not to drink at business events. Like drink at home, fine, do your thing, but this is your career. This is how people see you. And HR, I know that people in human resources, they dread events with alcohol because that's usually when there's issues the next week, right? Of like
Yeah.
he said this or she did that. So all of that is just this cycle that we're in.
Well, and for our community that's maybe listening and says, okay, I don't have an issue with alcohol. I feel fine with alcohol. A lot of what we're talking about translates to other habits. It's just what I would consider being intentional in our habits, intentional in how we're going to
Mhm.
show up for ourselves and for those around us. So if you took that broader, Laura, what advice would you give to any of our community members that are wanting to do anything a little more intentionally in their daily life?
Again, I think I would say get curious. So, why do you do these things? Is it? There's a book that I read, and don't quote me on who the author is, but it's called The Shift. And she and he, it's two authors. They talk about when you're thinking something, doing something, whatever, take this brick out of a wall. So imagine that you have this brick wall, take the brick out and really analyze the brick. Is this the way you're acting, the way you believe, the thing you're doing? Is this something that you really truly do believe it? Is it something you've chose to believe? Is it habit? Is it something that somebody's given to you? Maybe your parents, this is what they've always told you, and this is how you do the and actually analyze that brick and say, do I want this brick in my wall or not? And if you're like, yeah, this is how I want to lead. This is how I want to show up. Great. Put the brick back in the wall. It's part of your foundation. But we do so many things that are just habitual because this is the culture we grew up in or the family we have or the whatever. And to just stop and be aware and question something might be enough for you to go, I don't actually like when I show up that way, or I don't like when I do that thing. And it might go away. Now you may have to do work. You may have to actually learn how to change habits, which, there's a whole bunch of ways to do that. And that's harder than just blaming something by actually looking in the mirror and saying, I have to work on me. But being aware is the first step. Because I think we just go through the day. You know how you drive from work to home and you don't even remember the drive? Stopping and actually remembering the drive and looking at it and saying, is this the way I want to be, is the first step.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Do you have a ritual you do like any time of the year where you kind of stop for a second, reflect back to make sure
Um,
you are moving the way you want to move?
Yeah, I would say, well, this is actually new this year. A friend of mine gave me the book, the one word for the year or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And that, I think I've done that at the end of each year, but not intentionally with a word, but just kind of looking back at the last year and saying, am I going in the direction I want to go? Am I achieving the things I want to achieve? Staying the same, as much as some people, staying the same is actually not good because the world is growing around you,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't think there's like an actual ritual that I do. I'm trying to do a lot more like meditation on a regular basis and gratitudes in the end of the day. And so those type of daily habits, because it's the little habits that are going to make the biggest change.
Yep.
But yeah, and I'm sure there's every year I'm trying to get better and better. So I'm sure there'll be something new at the end of this year, but it's really about being aware, I think.
Yeah. Awareness is such a key aspect. And I ask our community to turn awareness in the mirror, right? We're usually very hyper aware of what's going on around us, specifically when we look for things we don't like or things we can argue about or that are going to hurt our feelings, but we're not necessarily as honest when we look in the mirror as we could be at times.
I teach in dental. That's my day job, and I teach leadership and customer service and systems in dental offices. And I talk about your four walls. Like we tend to blame outside things,
Yeah.
like it's the economy, it's patients, it's our neighbors, it's my job, it's whatever. So it's easy to blame outside factors because that's great. I'm not doing well because of this thing outside, the economy or politics or whatever, but you can't do anything about that, or you could do very little about that, right? So then you're just in this like woe is me kind of situation. But what you do have full control over is what happens within your four walls. What happens within, and so when we talk about a business, what happens within your business? Who do you hire? What's your culture? How do you lead? How do what kind of customers, patients do you allow in the practice? That's the same in your house. Like that's the same in within you. Like what could you do about you, right? Like we started this
Yeah.
whole thing, like I'm amazing, right?
That's right.
Because I'm going to go have an amazing day. And will stuff happen? Absolutely, stuff will happen. But how I greet that situation is going to be different because of what I've done within my four walls.
I love it. Laura, this has been amazing getting to sit down and talk with you. Where can our audience connect with you and follow along in your journey and get involved if they want to learn more about Sober Life Rocks?
Well, I got about 6 things here. So Sober Life Rocks, you can just come to our website. We actually have the largest sober community on LinkedIn. So if anybody's on LinkedIn professionally, if you search Sober Life Rocks community, so there's a group on there. We have close to 500 so far. It's not, you don't have to be sober. You can be, but we have event planners, HR, sober curious, soberish, sober people in a group talking about it. I have a book that's called the Inclusive Event Planner. So you can go onto the website Inclusive Event Planner and or Sober Life Rocks and download the book for free if you want to copy the book. So if you're in the event space or go to events that could use a little help on their inclusivity, there's that. And then lastly, if anyone's in the sober space, it's all on Sober Life Rocks. You can find it there. We are having our first ever sober influencer conference in January. It's in Florida on January 15th, and it's called Amplify Sober Voices. So anyone who's listening to this, that you don't have to be an influencer to be there, but you are influencing your environment, the people around you. We're hoping to put everybody in the sober space in one room, and excited for this event. It's the first of its kind. So we'd love to have you there. If you guys will be in Florida in January.
We're talking January 2026, right?
Yeah. Yep. We're planning well in advance. January 2026.
I just didn't want our community to listen and go, man, Jerrod recorded this one a while ago. Now the event's coming up.
No,
it's 6 months away.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's actually at Podfest. So if anyone, or I don't know if you're familiar, Podfest is a 3-day podcaster conference, and they have 1-day industry events there. And so we've decided to have Amplify Sober Voices at Podfest. So anybody who comes to our conference also has access to the 3-day Podfest conference. So it should be a good time.
Oh, awesome. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to share your story with our community.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.